Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the guy who keeps getting demonetized, and this video we're breaking down The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. The movie centers around Arne Johnson, a man who's literally arrested for possession after murdering his landlord. There's a lot of real life things that the film changes, and in this video we're going to be discussing the true story that inspired the film as well as the film itself. Full spoilers ahead, so if you haven't had a chance to check it out, then I highly recommend that you check out now. Please click the thumbs up button if you enjoy the video, and make sure you subscribe if you watch YouTube all day because you hate exorcising. Crap puns all through the video, and with that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into The Conjuring, Mephisto Made Me Do It. Okay, so up top, I'm going to be discussing the real life events that inspired the film, but if you want to jump ahead to our breakdown of the movie itself, then time codes will be linked below. Our story begins in the 1980s with the possession of an 11-year-old boy named David Glatzel. Ooh, spooky music. Now after he and his family purchased a rental property, David started seeing a ghostly figure that he described as a man with big black eyes, a thin face with animal features, and jagged teeth. His parents would become angry with him and say that he made the spectre up in order to avoid doing housework, but David would often reply with highly sinister threats about what would happen if they ever tried to leave the house. Even though they had simply purchased it to do it up and rent it out, they decided that now would be as good a time as any to move in, and this is where things really started to escalate. David kept telling his parents that the old man was appearing more and more, and his figure was starting to warp into a demonic wolf that cursed at him in Latin and said it would eat his soul. David himself started to change too, and after experiencing multiple seizures and strange injuries, the family reached out to the church. After they refused, they were left asking who you're gonna call, which is when the Glatzels contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren, who, like the movie, lived locally. The Warrens started observing David, and according to them, he levitated at several points. Whereas in the film, we just center on one malevolent entity that focused on the boy, in real life the paranormal investigators said that multiple demons attached themselves to him. This ranged from a number of creatures, totaling up to 43, that all apparently had their eyes on the boy. After the Warrens contacted the church, the family were taken more seriously, and they sent out a priest to carry out an exorcism, which we see in the opening of the film. Now this moment itself has a nod to the classic horror The Exorcist when the priest arrives, and throughout the film there are some nods to The Shining, like when Ed chases after Lorraine in a demonic-filled rage. But I digress, and in total there were 3 exorcisms performed. During one, David's sister Debbie had her boyfriend Arnie attend in order to comfort her, and it's said that he offered himself up to the demon as a way to save the young boy. According to eyewitnesses, he was attacked during this, and when driving home the demon reportedly tried to steer his car into a tree. Now in the film, we watch as Arnie snoops about the house, and here he comes face to face with the demon once more. This actually pulls highly from real life events, as Arnie stated he returned to the house by himself, and it's at this point that it actually took over him after he and the demon came face to face. See, it's not just Lorraine's hair that's accurate in the movie. Now Debbie was hired by a dog groomer named Alan Bono, and with Arnie they moved into his property. In the film his name is changed to Bruno, probably because the guy still has a family, and it's a bit offensive to paint his killer out as a nice and friendly chap that always leaves a like. And the only time that he did something wrong was because he was possessed by a demon. So, though a minor change, I can see why they did it, and after Arnie started exhibiting strange behaviour that was similar to David's, Debbie feared that the demon had taken over him. Now on February 16th, 1981, Arnie came home from work sick, and Bono, who had been drinking heavily, apparently grabbed Debbie's cousin Mary and wouldn't let go. Johnson tried to pull him away, and it's at this point that he started snarling like an animal, and he produced a pocket knife. Johnson attacked him with it several times, and it led to the first murder in the history of Brookfield, Connecticut. Now this is where the film and the real life story start to differ. In the movie we discover that David was actually the target of an occultist who placed a witch's totem in the basement of the property. It's revealed in the movie that a priest known as Kastner was sent in to study a group of Satanists, and he got too close to them. Referred to as the Disciples of the Ram, Kastner ended up getting far too close to the abyss, and because he took his work home, it ended up in some ways possessing someone close to him. Kastner's daughter too became obsessed with the occult, and she made a deal with a demon that involved her carrying out several ritualistic sacrifices. Now, as always, shoutouts to John Noble for playing another deadbeat dad, and you may remember the Disciples of the Ram from the Annabelle films. In the franchise, Annabelle actually ended up joining them, so the inclusion is a nice callback to those movies. Now, where the third Conjuring film differs from the rest is that this movie centers around a curse rather than your typical possession. After making her pact, the occultist had to offer up several souls in order to meet the demon's demands, and these involved a murder and a sacrifice. After Arne was put in prison and left awaiting trial, she struck from a mystical altar that allowed her to haunt the character with visions, which almost forced him to end his own life. However, the Warrens caught wind of it, and they started to investigate the satanic totems, which led them to the unsolved disappearance of Jessica Long. After receiving visions, Lorraine found that after Jessica was possessed, she killed her friend and leaped into a gorge. The connection that her corpse had with the occultist allowed Lorraine to see an altar that she performed these rituals from, and in the movie we learn that if one is to destroy this podium, then the curse will end. Now, trouble arises when Lorraine realizes that the occultist can too see through this connection, and after she learns of the Warrens, she sends a totem to their home. It's at this point that the film really starts to move away from the real life case, which I think is a bit of a shame, as I was really interested in the court case and how someone would try and explain a murder by saying that a demon had possessed them. Next time my wife asks me why I haven't done the dishes, I'm just saying that a demon wouldn't let me. Anyway, we learn that Arne is living on borrowed time and that the occultist plans to take his soul at night. At the prison, a priest arrives to watch over him, and Debbie helps to stop him from slitting his throat as the possession completely takes him over. Lorraine returns to Kastner in order to ask questions about the mysterious antagonist, and it's at this point that he reveals that she's his daughter. Using the clues of a train line and running water, which Lorraine saw through the connection, Ed figures out that she's in danger, and he heads out to help her as she's forced to flee into the basement of the home. Upon arriving there, Ed becomes somewhat possessed by the occultist, and he ends up chasing his wife through the mines with a hammer. However, using their love and memories, Lorraine is able to connect with her husband once more, and he smashes the altar, leaving the occultist owing a soul. The demon returns and takes her, and the movie ends with Ed erecting a bandstand similar to the one that they stood under during their first date, cementing their love. Erecting. Now, we also see Ed place the cup from the altar in the room for the occult items, which contains the painting of the nun, as well as Annabelle still locked away in her case. Until Warner Bros, of course, need to get her out to milk this franchise some more. Now, the film does sort of tease towards what happened in Arne's trial, and as this is an ending explained, I thought I'd dive further into this to talk about his life. Shortly after he carried out the crime, Lorraine actually contacted the police to say that he was indeed possessed, and due to his connection with David, the story quickly grew media attention. Labelled the Demon Murder Trial, this defense of Arne being possessed was thrown out, as there would never be any possible evidence that could be presented to uphold this idea. Thus, the defense actually chose a different strategy, and instead of going with the hashtag "Devil made me do it," Johnson's lawyers stated that he acted in self-defense. This strategy worked, and Johnson was convicted of first-degree manslaughter rather than something that could have gotten him the death penalty. He was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, but as the film states, he only served 5. However, the controversy didn't stop there, and after the Warrens published a book on the incident titled The Devil in Connecticut, David Glatzel and his brother Carl became very angry. They actually sued the publishers of the book for libel and stated that the Warrens made up the possession story in order to exploit David's mental health issues. Carl in the book was presented as the bad guy because he was a skeptic, and he said that he only agreed to the story being told because the Warrens promised them that they'd make the family millionaires. In total, they paid them only $2,000, and Carl said that the negative publicity which surrounded the story made him lose friends and employment opportunities. He actually created his own book arguing that the supernatural elements were make-believe, which Lorraine disputed. She said that because the church got involved, that it did cement the possession was real, and that the family did want the story told, which is why they ended up publishing it. Now, as of writing this, Arne and his wife Debbie do agree with the possession story, but you would say that if you'd murdered someone and then said it was a demon did it, but never mind. They've come out and stated that anything to the contrary by the Glatzels is because they simply wish to sue in order to make further profit from it. See kids, the real demons are the people. Anyway, it's a very interesting tale, and it does make for quite a fun movie. Now, my big issue with the Conjuring franchise in general is that it relies too heavily on jump scares. At this point, they're just so telegraphed, and beyond jumping out and going, "Ooh, loud noises," they're not really that scary. It's not clever, it's not intimidating, it's not tense. "It's behind you." Did I get you? Probably not, but that kind of shows how dumb it is. Now, there are of course ways to create tension and horror without relying on cheap tactics, and I feel like The Conjuring would do well if it tried to set atmosphere rather than simply having things pop on screen to scare you. Now, what's weird is that these are the types of tropes I'd expect from a low-level horror, but the Conjuring movies normally have a pretty solid cast, and I have to say that Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson again do a fantastic job. They continue to get better and better each movie, and this is definitely my favourite Conjuring film. I would love it if we spent more time with the court case rather than going off into the fantastical, as I think that's far more interesting than anything centered around demons attempting to possess people. However, I know that's not what these movies are for, and I can't really blame it for not meeting my expectations when it was never gonna go that route. Like I said, I enjoyed it, and if you love these types of movies, then you definitely will too. If you don't, then you're probably still gonna have a fun ride, but I don't think it's gonna change the genre or be remembered 20 minutes from now. However, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It was good, and it gets a 10 out of 10. Sorry, The Devil Made Me Do That, it's a 7. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the film, so make sure you comment below and let me know. As a thank you for interacting with the video, you'll be entered into a prize draw on the 30th of May, in which we're giving away 3 copies of the Godzilla vs. Kong collection. All you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the film. The winners of last month's competition are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at HeavySpoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of Army of the Dead, which will be linked on screen right now. We've gone over all the unanswered questions to discuss what's really going on in the film, and it's definitely worth checking out if anything in that movie confused you. With that out of the way, thank you for sitting through the video. I've been Mephisto, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.